Okay, so before I start, it would be nice for me to, first of all, my introduction has been given by Daya Shankar. So I would like to know who are the participants. So uh, if you want, you can put on your uh, camera. Even without putting on your camera, you can just switch on your mic and just say me a few things about your name and what are you doing at this moment and from where are you. So if I start from Anurag Bavaria, Anurag, good afternoon. Can you hear me, Anurag?
Good afternoon, sir.
Okay, so
Yes,
just
sir. Yes.
tell me something about yourself.
Yeah. So I'm Anurag. I'm from Nagpur,
Okay,
and I'm currently pursuing full-time PhD from Nagpur
where
University, and I'm into
from
third
Nagpur?
year of my research tenure from Nagpur University.
Okay, so what is the
Yeah,
area of your
and
thesis? I mean
I'm a
PhD.
yeah. It's into business cycle theory.
Okay, so you are trying to do some theory or
Yeah.
mixing both theory and empirics?
Yeah. I'm developing a theoretical framework of a causal relationship between expectations and business cycles.
Okay, okay, thank you, Anurag. Okay, now let's move to Himadrija.
Yeah.
I know her, but still I would love to listen something from Himadrija. Himadrija, are you there?
Yes, good afternoon. I am Himadrija and currently a PhD scholar pursuing my coursework in Biswajit Economics Department, and my research area is broadly informal sector in India.
Okay, Himadrija. Thank you very much. What's my problem? Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Maybe
sir.
I'm having some problem with my audio. So, am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir, very
Okay.
clear, sir.
So then it is Rajiv Bora. Good afternoon, Rajiv.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah.
I am Rajiv Bora, sir. Presently, I am working as an assistant professor in the Department of Economics, Bongaigaon College, Bongaigaon, Assam.
Okay. So you have already completed your PhD.
No, sir, I am pursuing my PhD under Borland University.
Okay. So your area of your work. What is the area of your work?
Sir, broad area is gender development, sir.
Sorry. Can you repeat?
Gender development, sir.
Gender development. Okay.
Yes,
So thank you, Rajiv.
thank you,
So
sir.
Rupam Mukherjee.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Uh,
Perhaps I know Rupam. I met him once, if I am not wrong.
yes, sir. Yes,
Probably
sir.
in,
And
in
I,
a
I have
college.
I have listened many lectures of yours, sir. in Barakpur Surendranath College also
Yeah.
when I was there. But currently, sir, I am an assistant professor in Kobi Sukanto Mahavidyalaya, University of Burdwan.
Where it is exactly?
It is actually in Bhadrashwar, sir.
Okay. Okay. So your area of research, Rupam?
Sir, mainly I work in the field of agricultural economics and development economics.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Rupam.
Thank you, sir.
Shashwati Swai. Shashwati, are you here?
Sir, I am Saksati Swai and currently I am pursuing my PhD first year from Biswajit University and my research area is agriculture economics and development economics.
Okay. So you're pursuing PhD from Biswajit University, right? As you said?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Shanti Tamang.
Good afternoon,
Shanti.
sir.
Yeah, good afternoon.
My name is Santi Tamong, and I'm working as an assistant professor at the Department of Economics at Sikkim Government College, Namchi. And I'm pursuing my PhD from Biswajit University, Department of Economics and Politics. I'm in the first year of my research, and I'm currently working on the area of women empowerment.
Okay. That's great. Okay. Thank you, Shanti. Sheila Karji. Sheila.
Good afternoon, sir. Uh, I'm Sheila Karji and I'm assistant professor in economics in Darjeeling Government College. And I'm also pursuing my PhD degree in economics from North Bengal University.
Okay, what is the area of your research?
Sir, I'm looking into the tribal studies, especially the livelihood issues and the marginalization problems.
Okay,
The North
okay,
Bengal
that's good.
region, sir.
That's good. That's good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Shravanti Maiti.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm
Good afternoon.
Dr. Shravanti Maiti. I am Associate Professor of Department of Economics, Vidyasagar University.
Okay, okay. So, madam, your area of research?
Sir, I did my PhD on efficiency, applied econometrics, but currently I work on socio-economic issues, poverty, aging, human development, etc., sir.
Okay, so how things are going in Vidyasagar University? You are taking class regularly, online, or a mix of
That,
online and offline?
sir, I also had a COVID. The
Oh,
thing
you
is
also had
that,
a COVID?
yes, sir, I was admitted in Woodlands for 17 days,
Oh
and
my
now
God.
too I'm taking online classes.
So,
It's
how are you now?
totally,
You are completely recovered.
no, sir, still in recovering phase, having breathlessness problem
Oh,
and weakness too.
oh. So,
Vidyasagar University is running now in different way because the vice chancellor has changed. We have now in charge vice chancellor for
okay.
6 months, and search committee will start like this. It's a interim period. Vice chancellor, permanent vice chancellor. We don't have right now permanent vice
Okay.
chancellor.
So, any other members of your family, are they having any problem, health problem? So, you're the only person
Thank
had
God,
COVID.
only me I was affected.
Okay.
Thank God, I have a 9 years old son,
Oh,
boy. So I was very scared about him that my husband, actually we two, me and my husband worked in Assam University, and
oh,
then I got this here as associate professor, and I joined in 2019.
okay.
So I and my son shifted from Assam to here because we basically belong from West Bengal, and that
Okay.
is where you would like to wanted to shift. So then when it happens, my husband was in Assam, and he came immediately because the situation is no one is there to take care of my little son. So it was a very crisis period. Somehow it's now overcome.
So, you had vaccination? No, not yet.
No, sir. Unfortunately, I was detected positive 2 days before
Before your
the date
vaccination
of
date.
my vaccination date.
So, now you have to
So
wait for another 3 months for vaccine.
yes, sir. I have to wait. My
Yes.
university actually arranged vaccination for all the stakeholders.
Okay. Your husband got vaccinated, right?
Yeah, that is also arranged by Assam University.
That's good. That's good. Okay. So I wish you speedy recovery. Please do take care of yourself and stay safe. In case you feel uncomfortable even during the class, just feel free to leave. No problem. So if
Thank you
needed,
so
I
much,
can
sir. And
contact you
you
later
also
on. No
stay
problem.
safe. All teachers are now affected by COVID, unfortunate for enough, because we lost some teachers in this journey of COVID and
Yeah.
this situation. Everyone is saying that teachers are staying at home, but we are also badly affected by COVID. That's true fact.
That's okay. Thank you, Shravanti. Please take care. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Sujata Devra.
Hello, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Sir, actually, I am doing PhD from Vidyasagar University, and actually, I want to extend my MPhil work, which I did from Rabindra Bharati University under the guidance of Professor Kaushik Gupta. And now, during my PhD, I am my supervisor is Professor Joydev Shashman. At that time, my MPhil work, the topic was actually theoretical work. Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, it was the effect of trade liberalization in the presence of informal sector.
Yes. The thing is that Joydev Shashman is still there in the department, or he's retired.
No, just right now he is retired now. But
Then
when
what?
I did join, he was there. That's
So
why.
what will happen to you then?
Now my co-guide is actually the Professor Ramesh Dash.
Okay. Okay. That's good because your area, as you said, it is trade, liberalization, and informal sector, right?
During my MPhil, I had a few classes with you, sir.
I can remember. Okay, okay, good luck, Sujata. Probably your area is closely related with the thing that I'm going to talk
And
about.
that's why I'm really interested for when your class will be. And when it was
Actually,
postponed, I was really
yeah,
bothered.
I had to postpone my class because I am suffering from, severe back pain, and that is a outcome of lockdown and online classes. So
Are
I
you okay
had
now,
a
sir?
not okay, but and this is the byproduct of also aging and lockdown. So I have to accept it. So some medicines are prescribed, and I'm continuing that. So I'm hoping that the things will be better in coming
Wish
months.
you fast recovery, sir.
Okay, okay, thank you, Sujata. Then again, another Sujata, Sujata Mukherjee.
Hello, sir. I'm Sujata Mukherjee from Kolkata. I'm right now pursuing PhD in my topic. I'm from Bardhaman University, and my topic
Okay,
is crop insurance.
crop insurance. So you are doing PhD in Bardhaman University.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Bardhaman University.
with whom you are working? Who
My
is
guide,
it?
sir.
Yes, yes, yes.
He's from Chandanagar Government College, Rajat Jyoti Sarkar.
Okay, okay, okay. Thank you. And
Thank you.
next name, I'm not sure. It is support fund. Is a candidate or a blank connection?
No, sir.
Support.
It's a backup connection.
Okay, no problem. So yeah, Tanushree Devnath. Tanushree, she is
Good
also my
afternoon, sir.
student. Yes. Good afternoon.
Uh, my name is Tanushri Devnath. Currently, I am pursuing PhD from Biswajit. My research topic is macroeconomics impact of COVID-19.
Okay. Thank you, Tanushree. So
Thank you.
thank you very much. And you know why I tried to understand your background and your area of interest. So far, what I uh, understood is that only Sujata Debroy's area directly matches with the thing that I'm going to talk about today. So I'm going to mix a very basic trade theory with a little bit of advanced trade theory because otherwise, I mean, except Sujata, Sujata Debra, some other attendees and participants may will find it very, what I should say, less interesting. So I'm trying to mix it, and as and when required, then I will use mathematical notations, but not the complicated calculations. My target would be to use mainly some basic equations and diagram and the explanations because another target is that I'm expecting all of you because some participants are already in the teaching profession, some college, and Shravanti might is in university, Rupam teaching in a college. So probably in some time in your academic life, you have to teach international trade, maybe a hardcore international trade theory or international open economy, macroeconomics, or I mean, slenderly you have to traverse through international trade theory, though that doesn't require more complicated understanding of international trade issues. But if you do not know what are the underpinnings of international trade theory, then it would be difficult to convey what you want to say, because on the other side of the platform, the students, they generally find, this is my understanding, they generally find international trade is the most complicated one. But to me, it is not the case. Since we start with this kind of presumption that international trade theory is a kind of subject, that is not for all. But I'm assuring you that international trade theory is a very much understandable subject, given that you have a clear idea about microeconomics. So you can say international trade theory is an extension or refinement or modification of microeconomics. If you remember your syllabus in microeconomics, textbook syllabus in microeconomics, Then you see that at the very end, we talk about few things. One is general equilibrium. If we do not talk about general equilibrium, if for the time being, if we postpone discussing general equilibrium, before that general equilibrium, while discussing market, what we do, we consider market of one commodity only, and then try to explain different forms of markets, starting from perfectly competitive one, then imperfectly competitive market, including monopoly, and then oligopolistic market, then monopolistic competition. But in all these cases, either we are talking about one commodity or a bunch of close substitutes in case of monopolistic competitions. But the thing that I'm trying to say here, we are focusing primarily on one commodity. But in one commodity case, the moment excess demand and excess supply arises, then what to do with that excess demand and excess supply? That is a big problem. Then how to accommodate or adjust that excess demand or excess supply? Either you need to buy or satisfy this excess demand from someone else, or you need to sell your excess supply to someone. So this calls for immediately the idea of exchange. So you are exchanging one commodity for another commodity. That is why in some microeconomics books, we find a little bit of trade there, because this exchange of excess demand and excess supply is the basic phenomenon of international trade. So once you know production, once you know theory of consumption and their profit maximizing behavior of the producer and utility maximizing behavior of the consumer, then from this theory of consumer behavior you get demand, and theory of production you get supply, and then you draw the excess demand and excess supply for the range of goods that you want to talk about, and then you calculate excess demand and excess supply, then you match these two things and get exchanges of goods and services. That's what trade is. So if microeconomics is understandable, then why not international trade? But the thing is that you start with the presumption that international trade is very complicated. But believe me, this is not the case. Okay, now coming back to the thing, because while listening to Sabanti's state, I was thinking of essentially whatever we do during this pandemic or lockdown, at the end of the day, the basic questions that all of us face is that whether we are physically well or not. That's the primary motto of our life. We need to survive first, and then comes other academic achievements, success, failure, luxury, etc. So wellness is most important thing. But as you know, economists, they always have two hands. On the one hand, they have this thing. On the other hand, they have another thing. And economists rather, they, I mean, all, except economists, all other people, they are very critical of economics because of the thing that economists always try to look at any issue from a critical perspective. And believe me, I'm proud of my that sort of identity, because I'm critical of everything. So economics always tries to define the wellness. When I look at the wellness, it may be whether I'm healthy or not. But from economics perspective, wellness means whether you are developed or not. So essentially, the moment I say whether I'm developed, whether my state is developed, whether my country is developed, this has some connotation with the basic or preliminary idea of growth, and there is interconnectedness between growth and development. This growth has nothing to do with the issue of distribution, redistribution, poverty, inequality. This is sort of, this, I should say, it's a positive economics. But development is very much normative economics. And since market doesn't take care of all these distribution, redistribution, and poverty, inequality, well-being issues, the development has to take care of all these things. And it is not the responsibility of the market. Rather, it is the responsibility of the concerned state or of the concerned country to ensure that the output or the produced thing gets redistributed equally. I'm not going into the debate of equality and equity. That is a completely separate dimension. But my point is that market's responsibility is to allow you to produce following profit maximizing behavior. Market's responsibility is to allow you to consume following utility maximization principle. But whether that allowance of consumption and production and profit maximization is desirable for the society, that is not guaranteed by the market. That has to be ensured by the government. That is why there should be ideally a mix of market and government. Whether that is politically viable or not, that is not the part of my today's lecture. But my thing is that, my take is that, if I say trade and globalization, this is the main culprit behind rising wage inequality across countries, across globe, I'm not going to go with that. Because trade and globalization and liberalization is actually paving the way for more production and more consumption. Whether that more production and more consumption is desirable, that is the responsibility of the state. So don't blame trade and globalization for any kind of misery in any corner of the world. It is the, liability, it is the irresponsible behavior of the concerned country, of the government of the concerned country. They fail to appropriate the benefit of trade and liberalization and globalization. So when I'm saying this kind of phenomenon, what comes to my mind is that trade always creates two groups. One is winners, the other is losers. It might be, winners and losers. The moment I say, it gives me some kind of impression that I'm talking about a zero-sum game. But it may not be the case. If your production possibility frontier goes up, it goes outward, then the total size of the cake goes up. So it might be that somebody is gaining more and somebody is gaining less. So all these are various possibilities. So who is losing or who is gaining less, he must be unhappy. So it should be the responsibility of the government to balance between this gain and loss. Now, coming back to the original thing, when I'm saying it is the gain of one and the loss of one. So now, slightly, like a pinch of salt in the form of history of economic thought. Because unless we focus on history of economic thought, or we take clue from history of economic thought, essentially it becomes often very difficult to, move ahead. If you look at the history of economic thought, then, evolution or development of economic theory, then essentially, trade is very much there from the very beginning of the society or civilization itself. I'm not talking about, barter economy or something like that. All in barter economy, it is the process of exchange. Of course, it has to, excess demand and excess supply has to be matched with each other. That's fine. But probably you have heard of one thing that is called mercantilism. So, at any point of time, if any of you feel that you have a question, you can raise your hand or you can switch on your video and audio. You can ask me any question. I would be happy to interact with you. I am not guaranteeing that I would be happy to answer your question. Maybe I am not having answer to your question because you are not an undergraduate student. Some of you will write very good papers that might be published in American Economic Review or Journal of Political Economy or Economica. So I'm expecting a very critical question. So we would love to interact with you regarding that question. Not me only, all of us can interact on those issues. So what I was talking about, it is the mercantilism. So basic idea of mercantilism was that you have to be rich. By hook or by any means. So the business channel of becoming rich is to export more and import less. Because if you export, you will earn money, and if you import, then you will spend money. Spending money is surely a bad thing, and compared to that, exporting goods and services is definitely a good thing. So mercantilism is fine. But the main motive, as I said, it is how one country can be very rich. So without mercantilism, even if you do not think of mercantilism or exchange of goods and ideas and export and import, what was the other way of becoming rich? The other possible way of becoming rich was, uh, you know, war. You go and fight war with someone or some country and colonize them and extract money or extract property, extract asset, resources from other countries. And this is sort of, bloodshedding war. So alternative to war was business. So you can find the similarity. War is being replaced by business. And now if I think that I don't want to see any kind of flavor in business, any kind of flavor of war in business, is it possible? Because one is replacing another. So it is a kind of refinement or modification of word. But the motive is same. Motive is becoming rich. So why it is refinement and modification? Without blood, you can be rich. So that's the replacement. And the mercantilism was export more, import less. But there is a problem. The problem is that if I want to export more, someone has to import my commodity. So who is going to import my commodity? The country is willing to import my commodity. It has to have some money, but from where it will get some money? So it has to export. So the thing is that importing country who is willing to import some product from me requires money, and in order to have that money, that country has to export some product to me. But my target was to import less. So if I intend to export more and import less, the natural outcome is that maybe after 1 year or 1 month, my counterpart or my trading partner will not be able to import my commodity because his money is not that much. So this mercantilism or surplus in export minus import is not going to sustain for a long time. So we came to a situation that this idea of mercantilism and excess reserve of net balance of trade is not viable. If we try to understand the whole thing from a pure economics perspective, the main idea is that if your export minus import balance, this net trade balance is very high in one country, then what is going to happen? Try to think along with my explanation. If my country has more money, then this money is going to be distributed among the population of this country. So if the income of my population, my people goes up, this means what? The purchasing power of the people is increasing. This means I'm demanding more, but I am for the time being not talking about what is going to happen to supply. Supply remains fixed somewhere. So if I demand more and supply remains fixed somewhere, then naturally the price will go up. Now think very carefully. If the commodity that this country is producing and that being consumed by the domestic consumers is now higher priced, then it will have two effects. Number one, export of this country will go down. Why? Because the previous period, I was exporting this commodity, say at a price 50. Now the price has gone up. It is now 60. Therefore, my export is being demanded by the other countries. So for those countries, the commodity price is now up by ₹10. So it is 60. So if price rises, the demand for my good by the other countries will fall. And demand by other countries is my export. So my export is going to go down. First one. Second one, when the commodity price in my country goes up, and if there is another commodity which is substitute the good that I am producing and which is available in the international market, my people, they are going to switch from the domestic commodity to the international commodity. So if I do that, then what is happening? My import is increasing because my price is now 60, their price is now 50 or something less than 60. So two effects, two-sided effects, and these two effects are actually shrinking the gap. So my export is going down and my import is increasing. So the surplus being generated through this difference between export and import is being reduced. So this surplus or net balance surplus or mercantilistic view is not viable. And then Adam Smith came up with the idea of rainfall surplus. So Adam Smith said that, no, you cannot do that. It is not sustainable. Hume's rainfall surplus idea, David Hume's idea was also that. So Adam Smith's idea was, then it is appended by the division of labor, Ricardian idea. I'll come to that issue one by one. So the idea is that if you want to sustain this surplus in your balance of trade account, you need to explore more and more market. Now you think this is why and how history is also connected with economics and this idea of mercantilism. You need to explore more and more countries. You need to explore more and more countries means what? You need to explore more and more markets where you can sell your product because you need to sustain your surplus in your balance of trade account. So you need to export more. If you can export more, it will again have two effects. Number one, you will have balance of trade surplus, and number two, the more you produce, the average cost of production may go down. Why I'm saying may go down? Because in the first part of the evolution of international trade theories, we basically talk about all those models that are based on perfectly competitive market, and this perfectly competitive market there we do not consider the issue of decreasing average cost of production with scale economies. But the second part of international trade theory evolution of that thing is entirely based on that scale economies that starts with Dixit-Stiglitz model of monopolistic competition and Krugman, and then still it is Antras and Mark Mellins. So this is how we moved from mercantilism, and then we moved to this vain for surplus idea. And then what happens if if I find more market, then there is a possibility of division of labor. This division of labor means your efficiency in production is increasing. Maybe it becomes boring that you are producing the same thing time and again. But since it becomes boring, then it might have some effect on productivity, but that is very negligible. So from there on, we gradually move into the basic trade theories. Now, what and how to determine the basis of exchange of goods and services. Basis of exchange means, as I said, exchange is trade. So trade of goods and services. The first theory of international trade defining this basis of trade was developed by Adam Smith. Perhaps some of you know what Adam Smith said. So just let me try to share my screen with you. Can I switch off my video and then I can try to move to screen sharing mode? Is it okay with you, all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So let me try. I'm not very technically sound person, but still I'm trying to share my screen. Let's see where it is. It is present now, I guess. And your a window. So I have gathered some slides. I'm not sure whether this is that one. So let me just first check which one I want to show you. Then if I fail to go there, and then I'll draw this thing. Don't worry. Can you see anything? No, not yet.
Not yet, sir.
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir. No, sir.
Are you having any problem in understanding the thing that I explained so far?
No, sir.
Is that okay?
No, sir.
Yes, sir.
No means
Yes,
what?
professor.
You didn't understand anything.
Understood.
Oh, you understood. Okay. Okay, I will just some slides from Goodman's book. Let me just. Okay, yeah, I got it. But before I go to sharing, I want to say one more thing with you. And since it is very known to you, you can find a similarity between how trade theory and policies are related with each other. You know, uh, would you mind if I ask you one question? Anyone can respond to this question. Would you mind? I'm not getting
No,
any
sir. No,
response.
sir.
Okay,
No, sir.
so can you just tell me what is corn law? You have heard this term of this term. It's a corn law. Corn law was a kind of law that was instituted in Britain once upon a time. Corn law. Okay, no. So when I'm saying that it is the idea of mercantilism, so the main idea is export more and import less. So if I do that, then what is going to happen? I'm going to import any commodity from that person.
So can't hear you.
So
So video has been paused.
No, most probably he was.
I think sir has
Network
disconnected.
issues.
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I'm very sorry. I'm really very sorry. Can
Yes,
you
yes.
hear me now? I
It's okay,
lost
sir.
my connection. I lost my connection. Okay, so this is a technical problem that we all have to, bear with or accept. I got my internet got disconnected, so I am now using my hotspot now. So my Wi-Fi is probably having some problem. Okay, so what is the thing that I was talking about? Can anyone please help me
It,
recall it?
Sir, he was
in
discussing
The
about the
corn law.
corn law.
Corn law. Okay.
So the corn law.
Okay. Corn law. So I'm going to import a commodity from the uh, most efficient person. And the most efficient person means most efficient country. He is producing at the least cost. And the market is perfectly competitive. If it is least cost, this means the price, competitive market means the cost of production is equal to the price. So the price must be less or lowest in that country. Okay. So corn law was the idea of putting restriction on the import of corn. Corn means food grains or food, not food grains, food products. So Britain was importing food from other countries. And what happened then, since Britain was importing food from other countries, the food production or food producers of Britain, Northern Britain, they were suffering most because the consumers are getting the same product at a reasonably low price when they import it from other countries. So putting a restriction on the import of food means what? The tariff or restriction inclusive price of imported food was high in Britain after the initiation of Corn Law. So as a result of that, the producers of food, farmers of Britain, they were very happy. But historically it is true that farmers are not the great savers. If they are not the great savers, they are not the great investors either. So who are the great investors? It is the manufacturing sector. Manufacturing sectors employ labor, and labor's wage is essentially connected with the food price because for their survival they need to buy food. Now what is happening? Since the imported price of the food is higher in Britain, the Britain's farmers were charging a relatively high price for the same product. And this product is being purchased by the other workers who are employed in the manufacturing sector. So since their cost of production is now high, they are asking for higher wage. Are you getting my point? Is it clear to all of you?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
So they are asking for higher wage. So if the manufacturing sector or the businessmen of the business house, they pay more wage, it is not only that their cost of production is going up, their profit is also dwindling. So this dwindling profit is having a great and direct impact on savings and investment. So they went for a repeal of Corn Law, a sort of agitation, and they moved to Parliament. And you need to repeal this Corn Law. Otherwise, this country is going to suffer a great setback in coming years because nothing much is going to be invested in this economy in coming months. And the government accepted it. And that was the main reason behind the repeal of Corn Law. So why I'm saying this repeal of Corn Law, the main idea was least cost production of the same commodity from other countries. That's a part of international trade theory. I'll come to that. While discussing Adam Smith's theory of Ricardian international trade or Ricardian theory, I will try to figure out where the cost of production is lowest. But what I'm trying to say is that the idea of mercantilism was more and more export. The same thing that we experienced during globalization and free trade. And the idea of Corn Law was putting a restriction on import, that is a restricted trade. And then repeal of Corn Law means you are removing the restriction. So you are moving from protection to trade liberalization. So it is not that this trade liberalization, globalization and privatization is there in the year only from 1990s. It is very much there from that age of mercantilism. So it is time and again it is coming and going just like business cycle. And when it is coming back, it is taking a new form. It is taking a new shape and it is taking a new name. And we are the pulse. And we are always driven by these new names. So, okay. So this is how this theory and policies are interconnected. And if you look at the evolution of trade theories very carefully, I should say that it is a series of, rather it is a process of series of unbundling. When I had nothing to buy from, I had no one to buy from, then what I can do? I need to produce whatever I want. That had happened, long ago, 2,000, 3,000 years ago. But when I find that there could be a mismatch between my demand and my neighbor's excess supply, then I started to think of one thing. One is that I'm moving from, barter system, exchange of goods and services, from that system to the introduction of money. But the other thing is that if that is possible, then why should I produce all the goods and services I need? I should not do that. Rather, I should produce that thing for which I am extremely efficient. Because if I am a doctor, I should see patient. I should not teach economics. And if I'm a professor of economics, I should not see a doctor, because you can understand. If an economist can try to prescribe some medicines for COVID patients, or say a patient with gallstone, then what is going to happen? So I'm giving you two extreme examples. My point is that everyone should do what he or she can do most efficiently. So if that happens, then I will produce a commodity or service beyond what I need. So there is excess supply. So this is the first idea of unbundling. So that is why I said that it is a process of series of unbundling. Unbundling means unbundling of demand and supply. So initially I had bundled everything, my demand and my supply. Now I have unbundled my demand and being supplied by others. So that was the basic introductory idea of trade between two persons, two states, two regions, two countries. And then we found that this unbundling may not be very helpful. Because of what? Because of huge transportation cost. Because if I want to buy the commodity I need from a person who can produce it most efficiently, means very low cost, but I'm not sure about whether the transportation cost is so high that the transportation cost inclusive price of the product would be less than what I can do. Because if you look at this model of Hoteling's model of spatial equilibrium, you need to add this transportation cost with the product they produce or sell to calculate the total price, the consumer's price. So if your transportation cost is very high, then even with unbundling, that may not serve your purpose. So though the first unbundling was there, the first unbundling took a final shape when the transportation cost, tangible transportation cost for tangible goods, went down sharply. So that was, in Richard Baldwin's book of The Great Convergence, it was coined as first unbundling, but I should say it is second unbundling. And then, there's a very interesting paper in this domain by probably his name is Rodney Falvey, New Zealand economist, and the paper was published in probably Economic Journal. In here, I cannot, but in 70s, I guess, in the later half of 70s, Rodney Falvey. And there's some other papers also, but Rodney Falvey's paper is a very interesting one. In fact, I had one paper on this transportation cost, because when this transportation cost comes into play, we have some more interesting to say. Let's see if I get some time to talk about that one. And then after that, we moved from the era of tangible goods. In fact, that was the case of final good. And then we entered into the era of unfinished good. Trade in intermediate input. Trade in intermediate input, but the part was also tangible. Just like, the chip of your cell phone, or say steering of a motor car is being produced by someone, and then this is a semi-finished product or intermediate input, then it is being assembled somewhere else, but still it requires transportation cost. That is another kind of unbundling, but that comes under second unbundling. But the next one is more interesting. When you think of service trade, the service trade also required some cost in form of the cost of internet, right? So some 20 or 30 years ago, maybe not 20 years ago, try to recall or ask your father or parents or elder brother or sister, then during 90s, in your locality, maybe there was only one cyber cafe, and the price for accessing internet for 1 hour, maybe it was 100 or 60. So even if you think of trade in services, then the cost of sending emails or business process outsourcing, it was relatively more costly because of internet cost. And then we had some revolution in information communication technology, and then the service trade, I mean, took the whole world in whisker. So that was sort of third unbundling. And still we are going through another phase of unbundling. It is the real-time interaction. This is what is going on now. Writing your code and sending the file to your client is a kind of unbundling. You are sending the product, you are not interacting with him or with your client. But now I am interacting with my client. So it is real-time interaction. So this is, I should say, fourth unbundling. But all these unbundlings are very nicely written in this book. If someone feels interested, I request you to go read this book by Richard Baldwin. It's a very famous trade economist. Some of the papers and recent works of Richard Baldwin is available on CEPR, I guess, Foxdev Network. So you can download those books, but this book is not downloadable. The price is not very high either. It is around, say, 500 or 600. It is a great convergence. So you may find some parts of this book very interesting. Okay, so and here, you know, when for trade empiricists, this trade and distance between destination and the origin, it plays a very important role. And how this distance, language, culture, and other issues play an important role. Empirically, this has been dealt with in gravity equation model of international trade. But this gravity equation model of international trade may take an interesting turn when we talk about service trade and the difference in time zones. I'm not going to talk about the time zone literature here, but maybe at the end of today's lecture, I can, if time permits, that I can say a little bit about time zone, service trade, distance, and its implication on gravity equation. Okay, so what I was saying is that, so I'm going to buy a product from a person who is maximum efficient in producing this good. And the idea of that thing was first captured by Adam Smith. So Adam Smith's model, let me, if I cannot find the slide, then I will just write one thing and then we'll try to explain those. That's good. Can you see my screen? The blank screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Smith's idea of absolute cost advantage is very simple. For particularly, it is essentially, and I'm very sorry, it is not for Sujata Debroy and for Tanusri. Probably Tanusri, you had international trade in your masters?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, do anyone, if you have international trade theory or policy in your master's level?
Yes, sir, I had
Okay.
specialization
So,
in international business.
okay,
Yes,
so,
sir, I also
Rupam,
had.
also you also
I
had.
also had, sir.
So I'm really sorry. Please bear with me for some time because it's a very basic idea. But for those
No, sir,
others,
it's a long time ago.
okay,
So
okay,
it's very good.
okay. So Sujata, Sujata Mukherjee, you are from Bardhaman University or Calcutta University?
Sir, the masters I did from Kolkata University.
Okay, in which year?
In 2009.
2009.
2009 I passed out.
So that Kollam Channel, right?
Yeah, yes, sir. Of course.
Probably that was the last year of Professor Sharma, right? No. So,
No.
So no. So actually he died in 2011, I guess. Okay, so you had international trade in your master's, Sujata.
Yes, sir.
So who taught you then? Professor Sharnal was one of them, right?
Yes, sir.
And apart from Sharnal, who else was there?
Yes, sir. Kaushik Dashgupta, sir.
Kaushik
He used to
Dasgupta?
come. Sorry, for Kaushik Gupta, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, he was a guest there.
Okay.
And one professor from ISI, and also
Roti
Shoikat Sinha Roy.
Roti
Yes, sir.
Shankar
Yes.
Chakraborty.
Yes, yes, sir.
Bodhishankar
And
Chakraborty taught, this monopolistic competitive model, if I'm not wrong.
yeah,
Krugman model?
yes, sir, yes.
Okay,
So
so,
And
during
Sri
our time in
Nara.
2001,
okay, Rupa.
we had Biswajit sir, we
Chatterjee.
had Pinaki sir, we had Ronojoy sir, and Kollad Shanal, obviously. And at that time, Showman Shikdar also taught us few parts of trade.
Soman Shikdar usually he teaches trade and development in terms of
Yes,
trade,
yes,
growth and development, these things. Biswajit
yes,
Chatterjee teaches open economy, macroeconomics
yes,
from
yes,
Dornbush, right? And
yes, yes,
Pinakida taught imperfectly competitive market, maybe.
yes,
And Ranojoy that taught competitive models. And if I'm
yeah,
not wrong, Kollan Changal taught trade policy,
yes,
helpman
yes,
and crewman, right?
yes, sir, yes,
Yeah. So, okay, so let's come back. So I'm trying to, so in fact, I'd be happy if someone of you want to explain this Adam Smith's theory. Are you interested to explain this thing? Anyone? Or if you are not, then I will. হ্যাঁ খাড়া খাড়া লাগছে তো হ্যাঁ লাগছে লাগছে তুমি বলো কে বলছো
Sorry, sir.
ইটস ওকে নো
Sorry, sir.
প্রবলেম লেট মি টক উইথ হার ওয়ান্স তোমার নাম কি
বলো বলো তা জিজ্ঞেস করছেন তোমার নাম বলো
My name is Arunika Adhikari.
এতক্ষণ বাংলায় বলছিল এখন ইংরেজিতে বলছো কোন স্কুলে পড়ো
কেন মা
কোন স্কুলে পড়ো
Techno India Group Public School Goria.
টেকনো ইন্ডিয়া গ্রুপ বাবা কোন ক্লাস
class
in which class
2.
class 2 oh great you're a big girl okay good thank you very much
Thank you.
okay so let's come back. So it is Adam Smith's idea of absolute cost advantage theory. So if I say there are two countries, the basic idea is very simple. So say there are two countries, A, and I think all of you can see, right? There are two
yes,
goods, X and Y. And here I'm using the standard
Yes,
notation,
sir.
right? A and AIJ. This is the standard notation used in extensively used in the most popular textbook in international trade theory, Capes, Frankel and Jones, World Trade and Payments. And another, probably the second popular textbook in international trade theory, maybe this time it is the most popular one. It is by Krugman, Opsfeld and Melitz. Then Krugman, Opsfeld books, he uses only this kind of thing, AI, and Krugman, Capes Jones, he uses AIJ. And there is another interesting book, two books I should say. One is mostly policy-oriented book by Robert Finstra. Robert C. Finstra, he used duality approach for both Ricardian, Hexolian, and for policy purposes. And there is another interesting book for a little complicated book that who are interested in doing something on trade and industrial organization literature. This whole trade theories are explained, including the latest one is looked at from an IU perspective. This book is The Essence of International Trade Theory by Noritsugu Nakanishi. This book is very costly, and this is published by World Scientific. And I'm fortunate that Nori gave me one copy of the book, and it's fascinating. And just like other Japanese, they write less, and whatever they write, they are very explicit and clear. So this book is just like that. Here is another book by Marcus and Melvin and Kemper. This book is not available everywhere. I'm not very sure whether this book is available in Calcutta University Library, but I'm sure that it is available in ISI. I accessed it from ISI Library. So, okay, so there are two goods, X and Y. The market is perfectly competitive. And just try to follow my explanation. There is one factor of production. So both Adam Smith's idea and Ricardian ideas are based on labor theory of value. So the value or the cost of production or the value of a commodity is determined or defined by how much labor is involved or engaged in that commodity. This means what? How much labor is used to produce one unit of the commodity. So this is essentially technological coefficient. So technological coefficient ALX means how much labor is required to produce one unit of X in country A. And this is ALYA. And so okay, so let's see this is. And there is another one. It is ALX B ALY B. Is that clear? Now, if I say that I have this inequality, what is the implication of that? ALXA is less than ALX, ALXB, and ALYA is greater than ALY. The main implication of this thing is that A can produce one unit of X by using less labor compared to what B can do. So say A uses 10 labors to produce 1 unit of X, whereas B uses 15 labors to produce 1 unit of B. Whereas for Y production, A uses 20 labors to produce 1 unit of Y, and B requires say 12 labors to produce 1 unit of B. Is that thing clear? Is it clear? Okay.
Sir, yes, sir.
So if that is the
Can you
case,
repeat once again, sir?
which one? Which one?
Sir, the unit which you have put on, like,
Okay,
can you repeat that?
okay. So just hold for a moment. Say it is 10, okay? Say it is 10, and it is 15. It is 20. It is 12. Is it clear now? 10 is the number of labors. So ALX means what? A is the technology. This technology requires 10 units of labor to produce 1 unit of X in country A. So B requires 15 units of labor to produce 1 unit of X in country B. A requires 20 units of labor to produce 1 unit of Y, and country B requires 12 units of labor to produce 1 unit of Y. Is that clear? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if that is the case, then I can easily say country A is relatively efficient. Rather, I should say absolute. Country A is efficient in producing X because country A requires less labor sorry, compared to country B. Can I say that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if country A is efficient in producing X compared to country B, then country A should do what? Country A should produce X. Is that fine?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Comparing Y, country B requires 12 labor, country A requires 20 labor. So country B is efficient in producing Y compared to country A. So country B should produce Y. Then that's fine. Country A and B. So A would be producing only X and B would be producing only Y. Then the excess demand and supply would be matched in such a way that the consumers of both these countries would be able to consume both the goods as per their requirement. So here the basis of trade is absolute cost advantage. And what is that? In absolute sense, country A is efficient in producing X. Look, it is absolute sense means I am comparing X of A with X of B, mind it. And here also I am comparing Y of A with Y of B. So since I am comparing the absolute cost of Y, not a relative cost of Y, this means there is a possibility that I can consider the relative cost of Y. I will come to that. So here, if this inequality holds true, then the basis of trade is the absolute cost differences between country A and country B. And in that case, the pattern of trade would be country A would be exporting X and country B would be exporting Y. But there is a catch. What is the catch? If it is so that then what will happen? For X, country A is efficient because country A requires 10 and B requires 15. For Y, country A is also efficient because country A requires 12 and country B requires 17. Then it seems that country A is efficient in producing both the goods and country B is inefficient in producing both the goods. Then following Adam Smith's principle, country A should produce both and country B should produce nothing. But that should not be the case. If that is the case, then the population of the consumers of country B will die because they are inefficient. And country A will be flooded with excess supply and there will be no one to buy this product because B is not producing anything, B is not earning anything. Just like the idea of why this mercantilistic idea of excess supply or surplus in balance of trade is not going to be viable. So then Ricardo came up with the idea. So let us just try to, try to think of this same thing from a slightly tricky perspective. And what is that? Because in absolute cost advantage theory, I compared the absolute cost of producing X between these two countries and absolute cost of producing Y between these two countries. Let's look at this thing. I understand that country A is efficient in producing both the goods, but I am not sure whether country A is more efficient or less efficient. Just like if I can drive and can teach, then is it possible that I should always do both these things? Rather, it is economical to produce that thing which I can do best. If I am a better teacher than a driver, then I should teach and hire a driver to drive my car. So here is the idea of comparing the cost of production of both the goods of these two countries together. And what is that? You compare ALX by ALY and ALX by ALY in country B and in country A. Can you just tell me what is the value here? Forget about for the time being this science. ALX by ALY, the value is 10 by 12. And here it is 15 by 17. If you want, I can make it 20, no problem. Now, what is the value of 10 by 12? Can anyone please help me? 10 by 12? It is 0.8.
0.8.
0.8.25?
Yeah.
Probably something like that. And 15 by 20?
0.833.
0.833, yes. Could be. And what is 15 by 20? 0.7.
0.75.
And 0.75. Which one is less? 0.75 is less. Now, what is the implication of being less? That we need to understand. Implication of being less means this ratio is less. Please follow my arguments carefully. For those who were not very, well acquainted with this Ricardian idea of trade theory. So 0.75 less means this ratio is less. So the numerator is relatively less. If I think of, for your understanding, I'm just giving you this example. It is 10 by 20 and 5 by 20. Which one is less? This one, right? Yeah, 5 by 20 is less.
Right.
Okay. So what is the idea? Numerator is less if I consider denominator same. Less numerator value means what? So country B requires less labor to produce 1 unit of X. So if country B stops producing 1 unit of Y, then country B saves how much of labor? Look at this inequality. It will be easy to understand. If country, you have to respond to my question. If country B stops producing 1 unit of Y, then how much labor country B saves?
ALYB, sir.
So look at this inequality, Rupam, and tell me. Is it Rupam?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So if country B stops producing 1 unit of Y, how much Y he saves? ALY definitely.
ALYB.
And here it is 20. Okay.
Yes.
So by using 20, how much X country B can produce? That depends on the labor requirement of X in country B. And labor requirement of X in country B is 5. But now B has extra 20 units of labor. So
Yes.
using extra 20 units of labor, how much X country B can produce? 4.
4.
So just sacrificing 1 unit of Y gives 4 more units of X in country B. That's fine. One side of the story. Let's come back to A. If country A stops producing 1 unit of Y, country A also saves 20. By using the saved 20 units of labor, how much extra X country A can produce? That depends on the labor requirement of X in country A. The labor requirement of X in country A is given by 10. So 1 X requires 10 units of labor. So by using saved 20 units of labor, country A can produce 2 units of labor. Whereas country B could produce 4 units of labor. Both these countries are stopping the production of Y by 1 unit. Mind it. And then reallocating these resources, labor, to produce Y, produce X. Country B can produce 4 units more. Country A can produce only 2 units more. Means what? Country B is more efficient in producing X, because the relative cost of production of X, it is not the absolute cost. So relative cost of production of X in country B is less than the relative cost of producing X in country A. So here, even if it is true that country A should produce both the goods, what I find here is that no, country B should produce X, because country B is relatively less inefficient. I am not saying that country B is efficient, rather I am saying country B is relatively less inefficient in producing X, and country A is more efficient in producing Y. So here the trade pattern will be just reverse. Country B would be exporting X and country A would be exporting Y. Is it clear?
Yes, sir. So, sir, this is basically the opportunity cost. This relative
Exactly.
cost.
This is the opportunity cost theory of trade. And this is the idea of opportunity cost. So now I will move from this numerical example to diagrammatic exposition of Ricardian trade theory. But I think it's high time that I should take a break. And all of you are maybe a little tired with me. So let's stop here today, not today, for the first half, and then I'll come back at DSK is here. Darshankar, are you here? Can you listen? Darshankar, are you in office? Okay, no problem. So it is, I can see it is 4:18. So we'll come back at 4:30 or 4:35. Is that okay for all of you?
Okay,
Yes,
sir.
no problem.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I'm not leaving this meeting. I'm just putting my mic and camera off. হ্যালো, দয়াশঙ্কর।
Yes, sir.
আমি চলে এসেছি আমি।
Yes, sir. No problem. Start করে দিতে পারে।
শুরু করবো?
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, স্টার্ট করে দিন।
Okay. So what I was discussing is, yeah, it's a Ricardian theory. So I was presenting something. I probably stopped that thing. So let me go back to my presentation. So here it is. Okay. So here now I used. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Now this second session is going to be completely an interactive one. Okay. So I will do thing. If you think that it is not required, then you tell me. I'll skip that. Okay. So far what I did is that in the just before the break, I talked about a numerical example while explaining Ricardian idea of comparative cost advantage theory, as it is rightly said by Rupam. It is the opportunity cost theory of trade. In fact, if we draw the production possibility curve in any situation, the entire idea of production possibility curve is based on the idea of opportunity cost. And depending on this opportunity cost, whether this opportunity cost is increasing or decreasing or constant, we will get the concave, convex, and straight line PPC or PPF. For increasing opportunity, yes, of course, it has some relation with returns to scale. But as of now, the more if you just try to visualize an opportunity sort of production possibility curve, and then try to explain what is going to happen if you want to sacrifice one unit of X for another unit of Y. Then if you go from left to right, you can check that your opportunity cost is increasing because the thing that you need to sacrifice to get one more unit of the commodity that you measured along the horizontal axis is increasing. So this concave PPC is consistent with increasing opportunity cost, while the convex one is decreasing, and in case of constant, we have the straight line. So here we will start from the straight line opportunity cost. Sorry, production possibility curve or production possibility frontier. So not using the kind of examples that we took, rather to be more advanced, like not like children. We are just like grown up boys and girls. We have one factor of production. As I said, it is one factor model. Market is perfectly competitive, and one factor is labor. So the entire model is based on labor theory of value. So here my labor is distributed between two goods, X and Y. So X requires LX and Y requires LY. If you miss or if you fail to understand, then and there stop me and start talking so that I can stop and can respond to your query. So LX is total amount of labor employed in X. LY is total amount of labor employed in Y. So total employment in X naturally depends on two things. How many X or how much X do you intend to produce, and how many labor one unit of X requires. So how many labor one unit of X requires is denoted by, as I said, ALX. So here my LX is nothing but ALX multiplied by X or quantity of X. Similarly, it is ALY multiplied by Y. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And market is perfectly competitive. I have two goods. One is PX and the other is PY. competitive market means the price is equal to the cost of production. If the competitive market is there, and if I assume it's a constant cost industry, so real cost per unit of production remains same. It has nothing to do whether you increase the production of X or you decrease the production of X. The amount of Y you need to sacrifice, it will remain same throughout. If it is 2, it is true for all the time. If it is 1, it is 1 for all the time. If it is 1 means 1 X, 1 Y. In that case, the angle theta, tan theta is 45. If it is not 1, tan theta is less than or greater than 45. So here your Px is the cost of producing that. So total cost of producing 1 unit of the commodity is how much input is required to produce that commodity. I have 1 input and the input is labor. So I have used ALX amount of labor to produce 1 unit of X. So I am writing ALX. And 1 labor gets certain amount of money. And this money is denoted by wage rate. It is W. Similarly, ALY multiplied by W. And this labor is perfectly mobile between X and Y. And when I'm saying this labor is perfectly mobile between X and Y, it is apparent that this labor is homogeneous. So it doesn't matter whether this labor is employed in X or Y. As a labor, I do not find it complicated to being employed in X, neither in X nor in Y. I'm indifferent because I can run the machine for X or I can run the machine for Y. So wherever I go, I will ask for same return, same wage. So this perfect mobility of labor between X and Y guarantees the fact that the labor will get W wherever he goes. Okay? So here, if for some reason it is true that if your Px is less than ALXW, then what is going to happen? My question is straight and direct to Himadrija. If my Px is less than ALX into W, Himadrija.
Hi, yes, sir.
If your Px is less than ALX into W,
My the wage will decrease.
forget about what is going to happen in the second period. If my price is less than ALX, what is ALX into W? What is that?
ALX is the amount of labor that is needed for producing 1 unit of X, and W is the labor cost.
Then what do you mean by this ALX into W? What is that?
It is the cost of producing 1 unit of
That's
X.
all. So right hand side is my cost, left hand side is my price. So right hand side is my cost, left hand side is my benefit. Right hand side is my spending, left hand side is my earning. So if my benefit is less than cost, then what would happen? Try to understand the problem from a producer's perspective. No, yeah. So I want Himadrija to answer because I have some reason to ask this to Himadrija. I will tell you that. Try to understand the phenomenon from producer's perspective. Your benefit is less than your cost. Your cost is greater than your price, commodity price. So what will you do?
I will, cut the labor cost, or
you cannot cut the labor cost. Because laborers are getting W in Y. So if you cut the labor cost, all laborers will go to Y.
Okay. PX is directly dependent with the labor cost or with the production cost.
If your production cost is greater than the price, then what will you do? You are the producer.
I will increase my price.
You cannot. The country is small.
Sir,
Whatever
stop the
comes to
production.
your mind, that should be the
Stop the
answer.
production,
Whatever
sir.
comes to your mind. Himadrija, what is coming to your mind? If you are a producer, the cost of production is greater than your price. I heard a male voice. Who was that?
So Krishna Kant, sir.
Krishnakant. Okay, Krishnakant, please tell me.
Sir, stop the production, sir.
So that's it. If the cost of production is greater than the price and the commodity price is given in the international market and you cannot adjust a factor price, then you will stop the production either willingly, or what Imad just said is that if I reduce the wage rate, then low labor will stay with me. They will immediately go to Y. So entire labor force will be employed in Y. So there will be no labor to work in X. So X will not be there in the system. Himadrija, I asked you this question because this is the idea of or idea behind Dutch disease or vanishing sector. Probably you are going to explore something on that. So this Dutch disease phenomenon, you have to come to this thing. I mean, how and from where, that I exactly do not know, but the final result should be like that. Price is less than the cost of production. Okay, so here, let's come back. So it is the equality between the commodity price and the cost of production. Now, if I use this full employment condition to draw the PPF, so PPF is drawn like this one. This is my total labor. That can be written like this straight line equation, mx plus c. So there you get, here it is say x, here it is say y. Okay, so standard, very basic and childlike explanation. If I employ entire labor force in X, how much X I can produce? I can produce L by ALX amount of X. If I use entire labor force to produce Y, I can produce L by ALY amount of labor. Sorry, Y. So total amount of X production in the economy, maximum, it could be X is equal to how much? L by ALX. Is it understood?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Here it is L by ALY. Is it understood?
Yes, sir.
So if these 2 points are connected, you get this as PPF. And this PPF is a straight line PPF because I said that's constant opportunity cost. Yes. The real cost of production. Why I'm using this real cost of production? Exactly this phrase is being used by Gibbs, Jones and Frankel, and it's a very interesting phrase. So here, the slope of this line is essentially ALX by ALY. Okay? So from here, this ALX by ALY is the slope of the PPF of a country. Now, if you look at this thing, ALX by ALY in country A and ALX by ALY in country B, right? So ALX by ALY, this is the thing that I got. I am yet to get ALX by ALY in B because these equations are for any country, say for A. But for B, I will get similar expression. But the point is that either ALX by ALY country A is greater or less. So my point is that ALX by ALY in country A is not equal to ALX by ALY in country B. Am I understood?
Yes, sir.
Am I understood? Okay. So now again, very quickly, if I multiply this ALX by ALY by W in both numerator and denominator, what I am going to get? X by, okay. Is it true?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is for country A. So I'm now trying to do something for country B. I'm assuming that what I assume here, ALX by ALY in A is greater than ALX by ALY in B, and ALX by ALY is my slope. And for country A, this ALX by ALY is greater. This is the thing that I had in the previous example. ALX by ALY in country A is greater than ALX by ALY in country D. Okay. So if I draw the budget line or the full employment line for country B, whether it would be steeper than country A or flatter than country A, because the slope for country B's PPF is less. If it is less, then the slope of the PPF, this is the PPF of country A, right? And I want to draw the PPF of country B. And from this inequality, I see that the slope of the PPF of country B is less. So country B's PPF is going to be flat. If this is the case, then the slope of the PPF of country B is going to be less than that of country A. Okay? And this slope, mind it, from this slope, I get this and multiplied this by W in country A and W in country A. And what I got, Px by Py in country A. Now similarly, if I have ALX by ALY, if you do not understand, please let me know. In country B, if I multiply both numerator and denominator by W in country B, then what I'm going to get is Px by Py in country B. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes, sir.
So even if I assume that the W's are same, then since ALX and ALY or ALX by ALY in country A is not equal to ALX by ALY in country B, this implies what? Px by Py in country A is not equal to Px by Py in country B. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So this is the basic condition behind trade. So if I want to buy something from other country, then I have to have less price in that country. If I want to sell some commodity in some other countries, then my country's price has to be low. So the prices must mismatch. And this mismatch of price comes from what? Mismatch of technological factors. Mismatch of the slope of the PPF, right? So if that is the case, then very quickly I am not going to draw the world PPF and step supply function and why Ricardian model. The supply curve has, it is a supply side model. So why demand has no role to play in determining the price. I'm not going to go to the details. Rather, I'm going to go for some tricky models and we'll show you how you can twist some models to get some results. So here, so main thing is that, one is the basis of trade, then it is a pattern of trade, and then it's the gains from trade. We have to show that this kind of trade is beneficial for both these countries. So if I say that Px by Py is either greater or less than Px by Py in B, then The trade direction should be, if say Px by Py is less in A compared to Px by Py in B. So country A and B means country A will export X, country B will export Y. So whether this kind of trade is beneficial or not, we will see that. So Px by Py is less in country A. Now trade opens up. So if trade opens up, so Px by Py is less means country A is more efficient in producing X. More efficient in producing X means country A requires relatively less labor in producing, mind it is relatively less labor. So when I am saying relatively less labor, this means I am comparing the labor requirement between X and Y. So country A requires relatively less labor in producing X. That is why price is less. And since price is less, others are interested in buying the commodity from country A. So when I was producing more and there was no other buyer in the market, maybe I had excess supply. Now, if some other countries come to me and try to buy this product from me, there would be sort of increase in demand. I am not saying excess demand. So would be sort of increase in demand. So this increased demand will eventually lead to a situation where the demand will exceed the supply. So in that case, that excess demand will trigger or pulls up the price. So pulls up the price for which commodity? For X. So Px will increase. On the other hand, country A was relatively less efficient. So country A was relatively inefficient in producing Y. That is why the cost of production was higher in country A. And this is precisely why that forced B, me means country A, to buy the same product from other country. So when I was producing the commodity and I was consuming from my own production, the price of Y was higher in my country. Now, since I am allowed to buy the same product from another country, demand for my domestic product goes down. This going down of domestic demand actually pushes down the price of Y in the domestic market. So on the one hand, Px goes up in A. On the other hand, Px goes down in country A. So if these two things happen together, then Px by Py will increase in country A. Is it clear to everybody?
Sir, can you repeat the last line just once?
Last line means? So
Last
two things happening together. Px is increasing in A. Is it clear, Himadrija?
Yes.
Py is declining in A. Because I am not buying Y from the domestic producer. Because I can find the same product at a relatively low price in country B. So why should I buy this commodity from country A? Because now trade is open. So if that happens, the price of Y must decline in A. So if both these two things happen together, then Px by Py in country A, what will happen? Will increase. Is it clear, Himadrija, now? So this is the result of trade. Is it clear to all? Are you having any problem hearing my voice?
No, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes or no?
No, sir, it's clear.
It's clear. So Px by Py will increase in country A. So I have two situations now. One is before this increase. Before this increase means before trade. And before trade it is called pre-trade or it is called autarky. And another situation where it is Px by Py is higher This is called post-trade. So in pre-trade situation, my Px by Py A was exactly equal to ALX by ALY A. Can you recall that? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
When there was no options for trade, then my welfare was how much? My welfare was, this is my community indifference card, and that was my PPA. So my production equilibrium was at this point. So I was producing this much of X and this much of Y. And I was consuming this much of X and this much of Y because there was no scope for trade. There was no scope for exchange. And my welfare was I6. Now what is happening? Imagination. As a result of trade, as I said, Px is going up and Py is going down. And I am having this result. This is the post-trade situation. I need to establish that this result is consistent with an increase in welfare for country A. So Px by Py is greater now. If Px by Py is greater, Px by Py was equal to the slope of the PPF ALX by ALY. Now Px by Py is greater means the scope of the new price line, because you cannot change your PPF. This PPF is given. And fortunately, this PPF was equal to the price line in your pre-trade situation. But now this is no longer true. This is your PPF. Maybe you cannot change it because this PPF remains unaltered if you do not have any technological progress or if you do not have any increase in your endowment. PPF has to be same. But your price line can change, and this price line has changed. This price line, the slope of the price line is higher. So what would be the slope of the price line in this situation? My price line would be some line which is steeper than the PPF or this Px by Py in autarkic situation. Is that clear? If you think it is not, then I'll explain
Yes,
again.
sir.
Okay, it is clear. Fine. So the new PPF, new price line is steeper than this PPF. So my new price line is this one. And if my price line and PPF are straight line, we all know from microeconomics that the equilibrium will take place at the corner, and this is going to be a corner solution, right? And this corner solution will take place at a point like this one. This means what? The production takes place here, and this production means you are producing only X and 0 Y. Now look, why I am producing X? I said that country A exports X. Why? Country A was efficient in producing X. And if I am efficient in producing X, why should I produce Y? Because I have the option to buy this commodity Y from my friend, country B. So since I'm efficient in producing X, I should devote entire resource in production of X. So that is why the corner solution takes place on the horizontal axis and I'm producing only X. Is that clear? So when I'm producing X, my equilibrium, consumption equilibrium takes place on the point of tangency between this new PPF, new price line and community indifference curve. And from the community indifference map, I get the point of tangency. See, I'm on a higher community indifference curve. So this guarantees that my welfare increases. How? I'm producing only X. I'm not producing Y. So I'm consuming here. So what I'm doing, I'm exporting this amount of X and I'm importing this amount of Y. So this is called my trade triangle. Is it clear to all?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay. So this is how you can do similar kind of analysis for country B and can establish that this kind of exchange of goods that is based on opportunity cost theory or Ricardian comparative cost advantage principle bestows increase in welfare or gains from trade for both the trading partners. So trade here is not creating both winners and losers. Rather, trade is creating both winners. So nobody is losing. So this movement from autarky to free trade situation is certainly paradigm improvement, because you are not making anyone better off with making anyone worse off. So you are making both of them better. So you are essentially moving within the core of the economy. So from a different point, you are moving towards the contract curve and very much within the core. And how you are reallocating your resources from inefficient production to efficient production. Since you are reallocating your resources from inefficient Y production to X production, and you are producing more X. And since by using that extra X, you are buying Y from a person who is efficiently producing more Y. So essentially, this trade is an indirect way of producing goods in the world market in a more efficient way. So this trade is, in a sense, giving you the option to have a certain kind of technological progress, because you are removing your technological regress. You are removing your technological inefficiency. If you remove inefficiency, automatically you will get some efficiency, or your efficiency is maximized. That is why this is giving gains to both the parties. So this is Ricardian model. This is one factor model. So very recently, I have written very, I should not say it is very interesting. I have written a very small note kind of thing using Ricardian model, how we can explain this vanishing sector kind of argument, and can see that in an economy, that economy is ridden with corruption, then a higher degree of corruption in an economy may essentially lead to a situation where the entire scenario of corruption will be removed from the country. Rather, low corruption will help to sustain the corruption in the economy. But if the corruption is high, then eventually this will not be there in the economy. So you can twist this Ricardian model to get some more interesting and fascinating results. That will depend on how you can twist the model. Now I'll move from this Ricardian model to another. Okay, so I think I have some slides how to explain this. Yeah. So this diagram, you may find, some of you may find it is very known to you, but you know, this diagram is based on the world PPF in case of this Ricardian model takes the shape of like this one. Just keep this in mind, and then I'll explain this diagram very quickly. This is a kind of world PPF. This is for 2-country model. If this is a 3-country model, your world PPF will be like this. So in this way, you can find, you know, this in-country world PPF. So let's go back to this PPT and very quickly. So this is the relative supply curve, and this relative supply curve you can check from Krugman and Krugman, and Mellis, and also you can check Gates and Jones. So here I have 3 segments. So what I'm trying to explain here, you know, look, this segment is say for country A, and this segment is for country B. And what is this segment? This segment is for the scale. Supply curve is nothing but the manifestation of your PPF. So this is one part, this is another part. And from PPF, how to get the supply curve? You need to find out the production equilibrium, how much you are going to supply. So this is going to be the supply curve if for some reason your price line coincides with this BPM. That is why you are getting this kind of stretch. This means what? For the same price ratio, PC by PW, you are getting different combination of X by Y or C and W. You look at this BPM for here, here, here. Similarly, when your price line coincides with this stretch, you get this supply. But interestingly, this point could be considered as the equilibrium point for a lot of price lines. That is why you get certain amount of output, just like this output combination of this for various price ratios. You are getting certain amount of output ratio for various price ratios. Along this line, the price goes up. Now, if the demand curve passes through this point, this means this vertical segment is for, I told you that the vertical segment is for the kinked point, right? So when the demand curve is passing through the vertical segment of the relative supply curve, this means your equilibrium is here. And this implies that both the countries are completely specializing in production. Here in my previous diagram, country A was specializing in X, completely specializing in X. So here, both the countries are completely specializing. So one country is specializing in X, other country is specializing in Y. When my equilibrium is here, so when my equilibrium is here, so if the demand curve passes through this point, then one country is completely specializing, but another country is not completely specializing. And when the economy's demand curve is here, then the reverse thing is happening. Another country is completely specializing, and this country is incompletely specializing. So this is how the Ricardian models are explained. Now, very quickly, let me move to the Hextolin model. Hextolin model. Can anyone say anything about the Hextolin model? Rupam.
Yes, sir. Actually, Hectorian model is a bit different from Ricardian model in two sense, I think. The first one is that in Hectorian model, we have introduced another factor of production called capital apart from labor. So it becomes a 2 into 2 into 2 model compared to 2 into 2 into 1 model in case of Ricardian model. And secondly, what I think, sir, in Ricardian model, since there was only one factor of production, it becomes a bit difficult to understand that how trade can affect the factor income or distribution of income that you have mentioned initially in your lecture. But in Hectorian model, since there are two factors of production, then the impact of trade on factor income or income distribution that can be analyzed in this model.
Thank you so much, Rupam. Very nicely explained what is the Hextolin model. Yes, of course, in the Hextolin model, we have two factors of production. So 2 by 2 by 2 model, two countries, two commodities. So in Hextolin model, two important concepts that we generally use. One is factor abundance, the other is factor intensity. So two factor means, let us assume that my two factors are labor and capital. My two countries are A and B. My two commodities are X and Y. If that is the case, then very briefly, what I can say, if labor by capital in country A is greater than labor by capital in country B, then what I say is that country A is labor abundant. This is called the physical definition of factor abundance. So if country A has more labor and less capital, then automatically W by R in country A must be less than W by R in country E. So this is called price definition of factor abundance. So this Hexaodian model can essentially shed some light on factor income, but the most important and confounding, I should say, uh, debatable dimension of international political economy is not explained by Hexaodian model, which is fact, which is wage inequality between skilled labor and unskilled labor. And here you can see I'm considering one labor and one capital. But of course, this idea of Hexaodian model can be extended to bring in this wage inequality between skilled labor and unskilled labor. Maybe I may say something on that later, but probably I would not be able to, because I can see it's 16 or 17 at this moment. So this is the physical definition and price definition. So based on these assumptions and inequality, what the Hexaodian theorem proposes is that a country should produce and export that commodity which intensively uses the abundant factor. So if country A is labor abundant, then country A should produce that commodity which intensively uses labor. So one more word which is unknown to us. Factor intensity. What is that? So now I draw something from this idea of opportunity cost. I have here, unlike Ricardian model, two factors of production. So factor intensity means one commodity requires two factors, and in which intensity these two factors are being used. Can you just hold for a moment? Probably somebody is calling. Okay, I'm sorry. So what I was saying is that when I'm look at this thing, so I need to understand both these factors, labor and capital, are used to produce these two goods X and Y, but the intensity of uses of labor and capital I need to measure. So ALX is the amount of L required to produce 1 unit of X, but at the same time, X also requires capital. So I need to compare these two things. Rather, I can write it in this way, that it is AL by ALK in X in country A. Whether this is greater or less than AL by ALK by AL by AK in Y in country A. Or you can write it this way, ALX by AKX. That's more convenient, I guess. So if that is the case, and if ALX by AKX in A is greater than ALY by AKY in country A, then what I can say is that X is labor intensive. So X uses more labor. If X is an agricultural commodity, then it naturally uses more labor. So, and if country A is labor abundant, then what Hexaodian theorem says that country A should produce that commodity which intensively uses abundant factor. Abundant factor is L, and X intensively uses L. So country A should export X and country B should export Y. So this is the basic idea of Hexaodian model. Am I right, Priyam? Rupam?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So two important corollaries of Hexaodian theorem. I'm not going to the details of mathematical details, because we need to do some differentiations, use Kramer's rule, and to find some, how to solve and calculate determinant matrix. Probably all of you know, but I'm not doing that thing. It is available on net or in any book. Rather, let me draw two simple diagrams. Rather, I will try to explain two phenomena using four diagrams, two alternative diagrams, two straight diagrams. One is called Rybczynski theorem, the other is called Stolper-Samuelson. Rybczynski theorem says that if one country experiences an increase in endowment of a factor, then the commodity which intensively uses the increased factor will expand and the other sector will contract. This is first Rybczynski theorem. But Rybczynski theorem also has an extension or magnification effect. That says that if the expanded factor sector will expand more than the increase in factor, and the contracting sector will be reduced by more than the factor that experiences contraction. But here I have not used anything like contraction of factor, so I have used only one thing, that the one factor experience expansion. Just give me an example. Labor and capital. Labor increases, so labor is greater than capital now, so it is hat notation. Hat means the changes. And if from my previous example, since my X is labor intensive, then X will increase, so X will be positive. It is not only that, Y will be negative. So this is the magnification effect. X will be increased by more than L and Y will be decreased by more than K. Now, let me very quickly draw this diagram in two alternative fashion. One is, say here, this is my labor constraint and this is my capital constraint. Here I am measuring quantity of X, here I am measuring quantity of Y. So total equilibrium, initial equilibrium is here, because this is the zone that I cannot achieve. This is where, okay. So here it is my labor constant, you can check. This is my capital constant. So here you have labor, but you don't have capital, so you cannot produce. Here you have capital, but you do not have labor, so you cannot produce. So these are of no use. So only possible equilibrium is this. So this is called feasibility set. But if you are here, this means what? Some labor is unemployed. If you are here, some capital is unemployed. So this type of models do not allow for unemployment. So these are of no use. So only possible solution is here. So these are the equilibrium of X and Y. So what is going to happen if labor goes up? If labor endowment increases in this economy, so my labor constraint shifts up. So the equilibrium position moves from this to this, and my equilibrium output of Y goes down and equilibrium output of X increases. This is the easiest diagram, but rather complicated, because there are some students, particularly in economics, who are more interested in doing some complicated things because of, no value. But for them, who tries to do some complicated diagram. So here you can think of cone of diversification and other things, labor and capital. Take a point here, draw a parallelogram. Then you find production of X. Since X is labor intensive, this line should be here. Y is labor intensive. Okay, this line should be here. So this is X production. This is Y production. If labor endowment goes up, then you will have new point like this one, because no change in capital endowment. So here your capital endowment was this, labor endowment was this. But now capital endowment remains this, and your labor endowment is here. So your parallelogram takes this shape. So your Y production along this line goes down, your X production goes up. Is it clear to all? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So just like this diagram, we can draw another, which is called Stolper-Samuelson theorem, very popular. That talks about the factor income distribution. Here it is W and R. It is not usually drawn, but you can think of, PX is this kind of diagram is good for Stolper-Samuelson ALX. But for understanding, you can use this thing. But I do not recommend for Stolper-Samuelson theorem based diagram, but kind of this. But main thing is the intuitive explanation for the Stolper-Samuelson theorem. So ALXW plus AKXR. From here, you can also draw a straight line, just likewise to MX plus C. So this is the price line for X, and this is the price line for Y. So here is the equilibrium W and R. Now, if for some reason price of X goes up, actually, Stolper-Samuelson result is an outcome of carry policy. Since I'm not explaining the policy, so I'm not focusing more on that. But for some reason, if price of X goes up, then what will happen to the factor prices? Factor prices means here W is going up from here to there, and R is going down. Okay, so this is called Stolper-Samuelson argument. But the most important part and the beautiful segment dimension of this actuarial model is that here you can find complete divisibility between output sector and the price equations and output equations. The price equations are completely separate from the quantity system. This price equation determines your factor prices, and for Rybczynski theorem, your full employment or the factor employment determines the output. But that is not necessarily true always. And there you can clearly demonstrate the mixing of these two, quantity system and price system, that is specific factor model of trade, which is a sort of, if you make a transition from Ricardo to Hexorian model. Hexorian model is completely long run kind of phenomenon, and Ricardo is there is only one factor of production. Now, if you add one more factor here, which is specific to various sectors, then you can have this specific factor model of trade. And the phenomenon that I mentioned once to Himadrija, that Dutch disease and the booming sector of vanishing sector argument, that has something to do with specific factor model of trade, which I am unable to discuss today because of paucity of time. But maybe someday later on, somewhere we can meet and discuss. Okay, thank you very much for your patient hearing. I'll stop here now. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. Am I audible to you?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any question, anyone? I think you don't have any question, no problem. So again, once again, I thank you very much for bearing with me for the last, say, around 100